So there was a question posted for the CNN Republican debates asking Ron Paul if he was in favor of corporate personhood. That's a really great question, and I've been searching online, doing some research, trying to find out Ron Paul's position on that issue, and I couldn't find anything. Um, so I would hope that that question gets asked, but it probably won't. Um, So if anybody else happens to know where I could find some information on Ron Paul's position on that matter, I have heard that it is a state's issue and that it is actually a state. The states all have their own legislation, which allows for certain entities to be declared persons or corporations for tax and legal purposes. And I think when we're talking about a free market, that is the real issue there. If a corporation is a sovereign legal entity, then the individuals which own and run that corporation are less responsible for the harms which it may cause. They have less liability, and that is where we run into problems because then instead of having to act as moral, law abiding citizens as individuals, these corporate entities, the individuals which are part of the corporate entities, get a little more leeway, and that leads to not only fraud but just an unsafe environment for consumers. If this corporate personhood um, system were overturned, I think it would bring a lot more responsibility to the marketplace. And that would be a very good thing. And I don't think a free market would be such a scary thing anymore. Um, but let me just say, as far as Ron Paul goes, like I said in my first response to the video where I posted a link to the Google interview, there is no perfect political candidate, and I do not support all of Ron Paul's positions. It's just that as I see it, the two major issues for me right now are number one, the Iraq War, and number two, the intrusion or the legislation of morality, the intrusion of government into my personal life with things like um, the DEA and the drug war is a great example. Um, it seems rather bizarre to me that the government has the right to declare war on certain plants and to call cannabis illegal and to tell me that I cannot consume it without breaking the law and being considered a criminal. In some cases, if I am caught 3 times with marijuana, um, I could go to jail for life. And it's for a non-violent crime, any drug crime where there's a non-violent, where the person is non-violent. Why are we putting these people in prison? Because we're basically putting them there to be trained to be violent criminals when they get out. So the whole idea of any kind of legislation which is for moral reasons, in other words, making laws that aren't protecting my individual liberty from being infringed upon by others, but rather limiting my individual liberty for some moral reason. That's it. Just doesn't fit with my idea of what a free country is supposed to be. And Ron Paul would certainly change that. He would get rid of the DEA and end the war on drugs. Um, he would get rid of the FCC. He would certainly try to reform the FDA, and the FDA is another example of government corporate collusion where the FDA is not protecting consumers. If you just look at the drugs that have been released on the marketplace in the last couple of years, they're killing more people than the illegal drugs. And so the FDA works for the prescription drug companies, not for the consumer. And I see that as a problem inherent to government regulation of the marketplace, because then you're inviting that type of collusion and corruption. Um, Whereas if we got rid of this corporate personhood notion, corporations would be groups of individuals who are all responsible to the law, then I don't see how that would be a frightening thing at all. I think it would lead to more efficiency in the public goods and services that we all need and want in our lives. So let me also say that I really like Mike Gravel, the Democratic candidate for president. The only reason I support Ron Paul and speak about Ron Paul more is because Ron Paul has more support, and he has, most people would say no shot at winning, but he has a much greater chance than Mike Gravel because, just the amount of support that Ron Paul gets is many times as great as the support that Mike Gravel gets. And it's unfortunate that we have to pick candidates in that way. And if we had some kind of runoff voting system or something like that, then I could pick I could vote for Ron Paul and Mike Gravel in first, second, or another candidate in third place or whatever. But we don't have that kind of system, so it forces us to choose which issues we feel are most important and which candidates address those issues, and that's what I've done with Ron Paul. Um, so hopefully that clears some things up, and yeah, if anybody has any information on Ron Paul's stance on corporate personhood, please post a comment or a reply video.